On the 21st of May 2026, every sitting APC governor in Nigeria who sought re-election received their party's ticket. Every single one. Kaduna, Katsina, Kebbi, Kano, Sokoto, Zamfara, Delta, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Enugu, Jigawa. Every governor, every ticket, automatic. Except one. In Rivers State, Kingsley Chinda, a House of Representatives member who had resigned from the PDP barely 7 weeks earlier, walked into the primary as the sole candidate and received 268,497 votes, unopposed. The sitting governor of the state was not there. He had withdrawn the night before in a statement he personally signed. And here is what the narrative that followed that withdrawal got completely wrong. Every major Nigerian outlet described what happened as Fubara stepping aside voluntarily for peace, for unity, because of sacrifice. That narrative is not false, but it is incomplete. And incomplete analysis is how power protects itself. What actually happened on May 20th, the night before that primary, was the conclusion of a legal, structural, and political operation that had been running since December 2025. An operation with 5 distinct layers, each layer working independently, all 5 arriving simultaneously. By the end of this video, you will understand each layer, and you will understand why Fubara, a sitting governor with a democratic mandate, had by that morning no realistic path to standing on the primary ballot. Let us name the 5 structural layers precisely, because understanding them is the only way to understand why the withdrawal statement said conviction and sacrifice when the reality was no viable path forward. Layer 1. The party structure was not his. Wike's faction controlled the Rivers State APC executive, the local government chairman, 22 of 23, and the party machinery that determines delegate composition for primaries. When you do not control the delegates, you cannot win a primary regardless of your popularity with voters. The primary is not a public election, it is an internal party vote, and the votes were not Fubara's. Layer 2. The screening committee. An insider told one Nigerian outlet that Fubara was not cleared by the governorship screening committee, that he was told he could not contest under the party, and that he left the screening venue angrily. The APC national chairman publicly contradicted this, saying Fubara was cleared and the withdrawal was personal. The two accounts cannot both be true. What is confirmed is that Fubara's allies were disqualified from contesting House of Assembly and National Assembly seats in the APC screening, while every Wike-aligned candidate sailed through. Layer 3. The Assembly impeachment weapon. By May 2026, the Assembly had already issued multiple ultimatums. If Fubara had contested the APC primary and won, the Assembly would have moved to impeach him immediately after. He would spend 2026 to 2027 fighting for survival, not campaigning. The impeachment threat was not a bluff. It had been used twice before and had produced a state of emergency. The threat functioned as a standing deterrent. Layer 4. The APC national leadership zoned the ticket away from him. The APC national leadership zoned the governorship to Rivers East and identified Kingsley Chinda, an Ikwele politician from Wike's constituency, as the consensus candidate. When the National Party has already designated a consensus candidate, a rival aspirant who contests is not exercising democratic rights. They are defying party leadership. That defiance has consequences: withdrawal of federal backing, accelerated impeachment, loss of party protection. Layer 5. The peace deal terms. Wike confirmed publicly on May 25th. I am not surprised that the governor withdrew. In the first place, he ought not to have collected the form because the agreement was reached that the impeachment should be dropped, while he should also not talk about second tenure. 5 layers, each one individually survivable, all 5 operating simultaneously, impossible. Here is the constitutional and legal dimension that explains why a sitting governor who has a democratic mandate from voters can be legally prevented from seeking re-election through his own party without a single court order being needed. Under Nigeria's Electoral Act 2026, Section 84, a political party's primary election is an internal process governed by the party's own constitution. INEC supervises it but does not determine its outcome. The party determines who is cleared for screening, who appears on the aspirants list, and through its delegate structure, who wins the vote. A governor who is denied party screening has no INEC remedy. He has no constitutional right to a specific party's ticket. His only legal path would be to challenge the screening outcome in a pre-election suit, but pre-election suits on party primaries move slowly through the courts, and the primary timeline does not wait for them. The legal trap is this. The Constitution guarantees every Nigerian the right to contest elections under Section 40 and Section 42, but it does not guarantee the right to a specific party's ticket. A governor who is frozen out of the ruling party's primary is not having his constitutional rights violated. He is experiencing the consequences of a party structure he does not control. That distinction between the right to contest and the right to a specific ticket is the legal space through which every sitting governor in Nigerian history has been removed from a ballot without a court order. The mainstream media covers the noise, but on this channel, we track the actual chess moves building up to 2027. If you want to understand how power really shifts in Nigeria before it breaks on the news, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Let's look at how the rules are being manipulated. Here is the fact that reframes the entire withdrawal narrative. Across Nigeria in May 2026, every sitting APC governor who sought re-election received their party's ticket, every single one, except Fubara. Not because his state is unique, not because his governance record was insufficient, but because the peace deal that ended the state of emergency, brokered by President Tinubu, included a term that Fubara's allies now call a surrender deal. No second term for no impeachment. According to reports of the June 2025 deal terms, Fubara agreed to no impeachment, Wike agreed to stand down the assembly, federal backing to finish his term, Tinubu's team made it clear Fubara would not be abandoned, and the ability to contest the APC primary as a face-saving move. But the national leadership told him the ticket was going to Rivers East and Chinda was the consensus choice. Fubara's allies argue he signed under duress during the state of emergency. They call it a surrender deal. In Nigerian politics, agreements made under pressure rarely hold. And the evidence suggests Fubara himself did not fully accept those terms because he collected the form. He attended the screening. He told his political associates he intended to contest. Only on the night before the primary, when all 5 structural layers had closed simultaneously, did he sign the withdrawal statement. Fubara's statement that night said, "As our elders say, not everything a hunter sees in the forest is spoken of in the marketplace. Some truths are best borne quietly, not out of fear, but out of wisdom and restraint for the sake of peace and a greater purpose." That sentence is not the language of a man who chose voluntarily. It is the language of a man who knows precisely what was done to him and has chosen restraint over public confrontation. Hold this question. Fubara is still governor. He has a mandate that runs to May 2027. He controls the executive arm of a state with a GDP larger than most African nations. Is a man in that position actually politically finished, or is the withdrawal from a primary just the end of one chapter, not the whole story? We will come back to that. Now, if the political strategy I just laid out surprises you, drop a comment below with your thoughts right now. I read every response because we are about to pivot to the national fallout that changes everything. The most instructive parallel to Fubara's situation is not the Rivers State political crisis of the last 3 years, it is Edo State in 2020. Godwin Obaseki was the sitting APC governor of Edo State. He was denied his own party's primary ticket in a dispute that carried clear fingerprints of his predecessor and godfather, Adams Oshiomhole. The APC screening committee disqualified him from contesting. He was a sitting governor with executive powers, federal government connections, and a democratic mandate, and he could not get through his own party's screening. What did Obaseki do? He left the APC and joined the PDP. He contested the governorship under PDP's platform, and he won. That comparison was made directly by a Nigerian analyst following Fubara's withdrawal. This is what could have been Obaseki's case, but the man stood on his ground and re-strategized and decamped to another party and eventually won the second-term election. The question for Fubara is whether that path exists for him, and the answer requires examining the Rivers State political landscape with precision. Speculations are now mounting that Fubara may align with the Nigerian Democratic Congress ahead of 2027. The speculation intensified after reports emerged that Blessing Fubara, believed to be related to the governor, obtained the NDC governorship nomination form. But there is a complication that the Obaseki parallel does not fully account for. Former president of the Ijaw National Congress, Professor Benjamin Okaba, said, if Fubara picks the form of another party, he may risk impeachment. He needs to consult widely. Obaseki's Edo legislature was not controlled by an Oshiomhole-aligned assembly with active impeachment proceedings on standby. Fubara's Rivers State Assembly is. Any party switch by Fubara before May 2027, when his term ends, must be calculated against the Assembly's demonstrated willingness to use Section 188 as a political tool. Fubara himself publicly dismissed NDC defection speculation in May, saying, "I am still an APC member." That statement was made before the July INEC deadlines. It is the position of a man managing his options, not closing them. Let us now map Fubara's actual 2027 options, not what the peace deal assumed, but what the political and legal landscape makes possible. Path 1. Stay in the APC and support Chinda publicly while building for 2031. This is the path of the withdrawal statement. It is the path Wike's camp expects him to take. Its logic: Fubara is 52 years old. He serves his term, protects his record, avoids post-office legal exposure, and waits for the political cycle to turn. In Nigerian politics, 5 years of patience has produced second acts before. This path is safe. It is also the path that accepts permanent defeat in the current cycle. Path 2, the NDC route, the Obaseki play. A defection to the NDC aligned with Peter Obi's presidential campaign gives Fubara a platform that carries the Ijaw ethnic base, the obedient youth movement in Rivers, and a presidential ticket with genuine national momentum. The risk: the assembly moves immediately to impeach him on defection grounds. The constitutional protection for legislators who defect, Section 68, does not apply to governors. A governor who defects from the party under which they were elected faces a political risk, not an automatic legal one. But the Amaihule Assembly has demonstrated it will act swiftly when it has a legal basis. The benefit: he controls the executive machinery of Rivers State through the election, can mobilize the state apparatus for his campaign, and if he wins, the impeachment threat becomes moot. Path 3, the independent candidate. Under Nigeria's Electoral Act 2026, independent candidacy in gubernatorial elections is not permitted. This path does not exist. It is worth naming because it is regularly discussed as an option for locked-out governors, and it is not. I asked you earlier whether a sitting governor who has lost a party primary is actually politically finished. The answer, based on the Obaseki precedent and on Fubara's current structural position, is no. Not automatically. But the window is narrow, the legal risks are real, and the INEC deadline for governorship candidate submissions closes on July 17th.
If Fubara is going to move, it will happen in the next 13 days or not at all in 2027. Here is what the Fubara APC withdrawal actually was and was not. It was not voluntary. It was the end point of a 5-layer structural operation: party control, delegate manipulation, a screening exclusion, an impeachment threat, and a peace deal extracted under state of emergency conditions that arrived simultaneously and left him with no viable path to the primary ballot. It was not the end of his political relevance. A sitting governor with executive control of a $28.4 billion economy and 18 months remaining in his mandate has tools that a defeated politician does not. But it was a democratic failure, not in the narrow technical sense. No law was broken that a court has confirmed, but in the substantive sense. A governor elected by over 400,000 voters in 2023 was removed from the 2027 ballot not by those voters, but by a party structure, a peace deal, an assembly threat, and a national leadership decision, all operating outside the polling booth. That is the pattern this channel has been documenting across multiple episodes. And in Rivers State, on the night of May 20th, 2026, the pattern produced its most visible result. A governor, his own party, no ticket. Watch the INEC July 17th deadline. Watch whether a Fubara-linked NDC form becomes a Fubara candidacy. Watch whether the Assembly's suspended impeachment threat is reactivated the moment he moves, and watch whether in 2027 the voters of Rivers State get the choice that was taken away from them in a party secretariat. We are building the most politically informed community for Nigerians at home and across the diaspora. If this analysis gave you absolute clarity, share it with one person who needs to see it. Hit subscribe right now so you don't miss our next major upcoming breakdown, where we expose how the INEC July 17th candidate submission deadline is forcing every political actor in Rivers State to show their hand at exactly the same moment, and what it means for the 2027 race if Fubara files under a different platform before that clock runs out.